Let's revisit the select statement. Previously, we saw that if you have to get the list of all the actors from the actor table, you would write a select statement like this. Go ahead and execute it, and you have a list of all the actors from your actor table. You can do certain manipulation to further limit the result set that you get. For example, what if you only want to see actors whose last name is Alan? In that scenario, you will use a where clause to limit your select. And where clause is simply where last name and equal to Alan. There you go. So to recap, this statement is select star, you want everything. Where do we want everything from? Actor table. And how do we want to limit it? Where last name is equal to Alan. So you got a list of all the actor where last name is Alan. There are a bunch of other manipulations you can do on the where clause to limit the data that you're getting. I'll cover those as we go through writing different scripts. So let's say now, instead of last name as Alan, if you have to select all the actor where last name begins with D. It's not a specified name, but something you know begins with D. In that scenario, in your where clause, rather than equal to, you will use like and put your D and then %. You'll notice any value that we enter for a character values, which is the strings, alphabets, you have to use single quote around them. Otherwise, SQL will complain. All right, so let's go ahead and execute this. Now you got all the actors where last name begins with D. You can also do where the last name ends with D. In that scenario, you'll just use like D and execute it. So here you can see how you can limit your SQL. You can use operators like and or to further manipulate your result set. For example, if you want to look at all the actors whose last name ends with D and also begins with A. In that scenario, you'll use and operator to limit your query. So we already said last name ends with D and last name begins with A. Go ahead and execute it. There you go. These are all the actors whose last name end with D, %D, and last name begins with A, %. You don't have to use the same column in AND operator or any of these operators. Let's say if we were to look at actors where last name ends with D but first name begins with K. In that scenario, your query will look at first name begins with K. So now you're looking at both last name and first name. When you use AND operator, it looks at both the criteria and gives you the result set that matches both of them. You can also use an OR operator. In that scenario, OR will look at both the criteria and give you the results that matches either of those. So in this case, last name like D or first name like K will give you anything that matches first name K or last name that ends with D. That's how you use the operators. You can also use parentheses to define complicated criteria. So for example, in this scenario, we can say D, last name like D, and first name like K, or first name like D%. Now it matches those. Either the first name is D or last name ends with D and first name is like K. So it looks at this criteria as one, then does an OR, and then looks at this criteria. So it's this or this criteria. So you get the idea.